Most brands think subscriptions are a retention game. Optimize your cancellation flow, send better emails, reduce that churn. But for growing brands, it's actually a bit backwards. The brands successfully growing subscription revenue, they're laser focused on prioritizing their acquisition, the front end, and their offer. I'm Matt Lady, your host of Cartworthy. I do e-commerce marketing at Client Boost, a performance marketing agency for D2C brands. Today, I'm talking with Matthew Holman from Subscription Prescription. Matthew's worked with over 150 subscription brands, including companies pulling 9 figures in revenue. He's going to explain why going from a 35% take rate to 40% will grow your subscriptions faster than any retention tactic ever will. Here's the thing. Most brands are burning time on the wrong priorities. This is especially important early on. You have limited time. We're breaking down the only 2 reasons people actually cancel, the metrics that matter, and where you should be spending your initial energy and effort if you want to scale your subscription offer. Let's get into it. All right, Matt. Nice name, by the way. We're here to talk about subscriptions. You've worked with dozens, if not hundreds of brands at Subscription Doc. What's the biggest misconception brands have when they launch or optimize subscriptions? Let's get the overview. Let's set the stage.
Yeah, I think the biggest one is that they think that subscriptions is a retention game. That's the biggest thing, is everybody thinks that it's just this, set of tactics to keep people from canceling, when in reality, great subscription growth, all of the big brands in this space, everybody you see, they're really, really good at testing offers and acquiring subscribers. And then if you want to go a step further, the biggest misconception into the biggest secret is coming up with offers that actually have an inherently higher LTV. So talking about bundling or bulk options, getting somebody to prepay for 6 months. Those are the ones where you start to lock in, right? Somebody prepays for 6 months, they're on for 6 months. You don't have to worry about losing in month 1. So that would be misconception to secret.
Awesome. It's a good starting point. So I'm a brand. I just got to about $1 million, $2 million in revenue, early stage. I have subscription. It's been on. I have some subscribers. I don't have 0, but it's kind of like I set up Klaviyo flows a while ago. I have email flows. I have these things set up, but like I haven't looked at them in a while. You don't have a full-time person doing that. Like the founder is typically jumping around and trying to do 18 things at once. What is like your diagnostic process to how do I even begin? How do I diagnose this?
No, it's a great question and a great way to tee it up. I think what's interesting is, like, maybe setting the stage from my side a little bit, is keep in mind that whether you're doing $1 million in revenue, and we work with brands that are doing 9 figures in revenue, that are doing 10 to 15 million a month in subscription revenue, right? So regardless of size, what ends up happening is you add more headcount, but you have more things for everybody to keep doing. So I've rarely ever run into a company where there's like one person doing only one thing, right? We're all wearing multiple hats, we're all doing things. So subscriptions is kind of this classic thing that is often either neglected or ignored because it's not viewed as like a day-to-day problem, right? Your ads, your creative, your sourcing, your margins, your OpEx, all those things are like, we're looking at daily, right? But subscriptions are often like, oh, they're kind of working, or, oh, we should go look at them periodically. I think that's totally normal. And so when I like answer that question, I want to come from this place of like, you don't necessarily have a ton of resources, and you may not want to hire a fancy expert like me or really like invest a ton of money to it. So when you're thinking about that size, there's really just a couple of basic touch points you should be thinking about and worrying about. And I think for any brand that's hit a 1 to 2 million in revenue, you've already probably developed a half decent welcome flow for your newsletter, and you probably have some kind of like initial post-purchase experience happening. So what I would do is take the content from those things and go one step further and do like a subscriber onboarding experience. And the reason for this is most people cancel subscriptions because of 2 reasons. It's too expensive or they have too much product. It's essentially the 2 reasons anybody cancels something. So if it's too expensive, what we can do is actually start to demonstrate value in that onboarding series, right? So that's why I kind of talk about that. And then the other part with too much product is you can explain like usage, how often you should use it. So that's a really important touch point. The next one is really just your billing reminder. if you're going to let people know their subscription's about to renew. The other biggest mistake, or one of my biggest pet peeves, is when I just see a brand sending transaction email saying your credit card's going to be charged in 3 days, instead of like, your beautiful night's sleep is on the way, or like your puppy's next 30 days of flea-free life is on the way, right? Like something simple like that. So brand that billing reminder email. And then the last one is really just pay attention to your subscription platform's cancellation reasons. What is being said? What are customers telling you? Those are all just really simple things. You should already have some email resources. It's something you can add to a queue with like an agency or contractor using. But then the biggest thing is really just continue to go back to how you're acquiring customers. You've got traffic coming to the site. Are you testing offers? Are you looking at what other brands in your space are doing? Are testing on their PDPs and buy boxes? That's going to be the most impactful thing long-term than anything on the retention side.
Yeah, I think that's a great starting point. And then where I want to go next is you have the areas of the kind of the offer, the welcome, and the post-purchase or cancellation, like you mentioned, and the transactional part. When a brand comes to you, hey, they know those things, but what are you looking at as the expert of, I'm doing an audit and here are the metrics. What's good, what's bad, what's to improve? What are those important things? Yeah.
That's a great question, because honestly, everybody wants to know how they compare and stack up against other people in their space. I get asked that question probably more than that, and like, which subscription platform should I use, are probably the two most commonly questions I get asked. So the first thing is like kind of understanding LTV, because if you're at 1 to 2 million, you maybe have started exploring LTV with like Lifetimely or something like that, but odds are you probably aren't. And so that's one of the biggest questions, is like even just showing somebody within Shopify how you can look at like cohorts and look at like lifetime spent by a customer is kind of one of the biggest things. So like looking at lifetime value, how much people are spending with you, and then it's really to build a rough model in Excel or something where you can show somebody like, hey, if an average shipment, this is how much margin you get. This is your actual like average profit for customer, because they have an average number of cycles or number of subscription orders. So we look at that. We also like, when we look at brands that have a broader catalog, we like to see what products perform the best, what maybe products are being underutilized. Almost every time we'll find maybe like a third or fourth best-selling product that has like 30 or 40% better retention than other products in the space, and it's not being pushed enough, is a really great one. We look at churn. The metrics, it's really easy to say, is like basically every subscription platform will report your save rate. When people go to cancel, how many people do you save through your cancellation flow? And so the way I kind of, when somebody's under 10, they're, say you're 5-6%, you've most likely not done anything to like optimize that cancellation flow experience. If you're at between 10 to 15%, you've probably done a few things, but there's an opportunity to get higher. And then anything over 15, I consider good. Anything over 20% is great. So we've worked with brands that are in the 20 to 25 space, seen case studies of brands in the 20 to 25% like range. So that's like, well, I'd say even almost phenomenal. And then the final thing would be like your overall churn rate. So this is, in a given month, if you have 1,000 subscribers and you lose, 200 of them, you have a 20% churn. And so most of the brands that come to us are somewhere between like 12 to 16, 17% in monthly churn, which the funny thing is, like, say like a Recharge that has like reports like compares you to other people, like Recharge will say that's horrible. I will say 15% is not great, but is not horrible. And the goal though is to get to single digits. I think that should be the goal for any subscription brand, is that your monthly churn should be, you want that to be 7, 8, 9%. Really doing really, really well is like going to be under 5. But when you're growing, it's really, really hard to keep churn that low. So that's like to say like the 7 to 11% monthly churn, you're doing pretty well. I wouldn't be losing sleep if I was in that range. I wouldn't be losing sleep. I'd be still putting a ton of effort and energy into acquisition for subscribers.
Awesome. Save rate is cool. As a non-subscription expert, that's a good way to look at it as well. Then yeah, churn rate makes sense. One thing I heard or didn't hear quite yet is the on the offer side, the take rate to actually start the whole thing, which is like your core, like what your thing. We're gonna the next episode. We're doing a 4-part mini series, by the way, team, and the next episode is all about the offer. So to tee that up, what is like a good
we like to look at conversion rates. Your overall conversion rate is important. And then we look at your subscription take rate. And so this, again, I would put into categories. If somebody is under, say, 25% subscription take rate, then I could just guess almost automatically and be right 99% of the time that you do not default to the subscription offer. You're just doing one time and subscriptions below that, right? So that's usually 25, 30% or below. If you're getting between 25 to 40%, honestly, that's pretty good. 40 to 60% is great. And then over 60% is doing really, really well, is phenomenal. And so the thing is, though, is like every industry has different adoptions for those things. Like some products lend themselves better to subscriptions than others. And so kind of try to keep that in mind. Like if you're selling like devices that have say an electric razor, and you have a device, the replacement heads are the subscription. If you're just asking people to opt into the subscription, like something like that's going to be fairly low compared to, say, like a protein powder that people are used to subscribing and using. So I do try to like give some caveat on that. And then a lot of times too, it's like if you see somebody like Groons who's got this like beautifully branded like PDP, and they've obviously tested their offer because they're growing really well, as opposed to maybe you're at 1 to 2 million, where it's like, hey, like we have a site, we're happy about that, and there's a little bit of branding, and we've done a little bit of offer testing. So it's like kind of like keep in mind that like to get to that 60, 70, 80%, there are some fundamental things you can do, which we'll talk about on the other episode, but like don't lose too much sleep about it either. It comes down to good offer testing and some good design that you will continue to iterate. And so I had this conversation with somebody, we were onboarding a new client the other day, and I was just trying to point out that offers change, right? Like anybody in the ad business, anybody in the e-com business, there's no real offer that's just completely evergreen, right? Like if you look at somebody like Butcher Box, they're constantly flipping out the free gift, whether it's chicken wings or a pie or turkey, right? Like they're constantly switching through different things. And so no one tactic is going to work for 5 to 10 years, right? At least not as efficiently as other offers. So it's really all about understanding what you will be testing and what you want to test than it is necessarily trying to figure out the one thing. So I would say this to anybody who's listening is like, don't worry about the perfect formula, because what Groons is doing versus what you can do right now are going to be totally different. And also what Groons is doing might not work for you. Like that's the whole point, is like we've tested things that crush for like 9 out of 10, and then you're that 1 out of 10. So we have to flip the script. So just having that mindset, I think, is also just really, really healthy for not losing your mind over subscription acquisition.
This episode is brought to you by Client Boost, the marketing agency I work at. We help 7 and 8-figure brands, even all the way up to 9-figure, with Meta, Google Media Buying, and creative, SEO, landing pages, and CRO. If you need help with any of those, reach out, clientboost.com. You get hit a free marketing plan or reach out to contact form. We'll chat with you, see if we're a good fit, see if we can help you out. Thanks. Back to the episode. Yeah, absolutely. The product itself, the SKU, the business model, the category is very important in general about what tactics you can apply and levers to pull. So just make sure you're
I will say this too, Matt. Like when I audit or I work with people and I look at their retention cohort, so like your monthly retention over time, like month 1, month 2, I feel really confident just by looking that I can tell if you have a product that people like. Because the thing that's really, really difficult, like I can't fix your product. I can build out experiences, I can optimize, we can test, right? But when I'm looking at the back end and like month 2, you only have 50% of your subscribers, like that's a product issue, right? If I don't see 70, 80% in month 2, then I know that there's always room to improve, but it's usually like a product problem as well. So that's kind of like the other thing too, is like, it's fun to meet a brand or meet brands and they're small, they only have 500 subscribers, but they have really good retention. They don't know it. And then I'd get to tell them, this means you have a really good product. We just have to figure out how to sell it better and get it in people's hands better.
And that drop off on month 1, you said to 70 or 80. If you don't have that, that's a little higher than what you previously mentioned of the churn rate levels. Is that typically they like intro offer and then like, oh, I didn't mean to, or like
it is kind of complicated to like visualize what I'm talking about, right? So it's like, so when I was saying earlier, like monthly churn, this is like your entire subscriber base. How many subscribers in a month on average do you lose? And so that would include like new purchasers and people that are in month 3 and month 6, right? So that's like an average across the whole business. What I was just talking about would be thinking about cohorts. So it's like, hey, So we're filming in the beginning of November. It's like, okay, I have a cohort that started in January, and then I have a cohort that started in February, March throughout the year. And so I look at over time how the January cohort retained in February and March, right? So January's cohorts month one would be like February, month two would be March. And so if you think about an average subscriber comes in, I'd like to see, 15% first month churn is not that bad. 20% is probably alarming. If 20% is a little alarming, anything less than 10% in the first month of renewals is pretty good. 15% is doable though, because a lot of brands will slow down. But it's like, if you think about on average, I'm going to lose 15% month one, 15% month two. Maybe I lose 10% of that cohort month three, and then I'm in single digits after that. You're doing a pretty good job. Like that's a general overall. I'm going across industries and business size. You're doing pretty good. If you're doing better than that, then you need to spend more money on acquisition, right? Because you have better LTV than maybe you realize, and you should be spending some of that. If it's worse, then, it's always good to look at the product, or also a lot of the stuff we're talking about, trying to make subscriptions retain better.
Great clarification.
Yeah.
I'm sure
It's
I'm not the only
confusing.
one
The
with
data
that
side of
question.
subscriptions
Yeah.
is really annoying sometimes. And every app does it differently. Every app looks at retention differently, just a little bit differently. So it's always a little tricky.
Yeah. Super helpful. Appreciate that. So a couple more to kind of just set the stage on this first episode to kind of cover everything. It's like we talked about the few different areas now: offer, the flows, the subscriber experience, churn prevention, save rate, all these things. Like how does a brand know, or how do you know where to start? Like, is it just the normal benchmarks and it's quantitatively, or is it like, would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I stole this phrase from Jay Dolwani at Hire the Starters. He called it the art and science of subscriptions when I interviewed him once on my podcast. And so I do like to say there's a little bit of both art and science to it. But I will kind of give this as an example. And again, this is one of those things that's fun to like whiteboard out. But let's just take, for example, you have a brand that's a 35% take rate on subscriptions, and they're acquiring 100 subscribers a month, right? So that means they're getting like 350 sales. Now I could come in, other experts could come in, you could build out this amazing onboarding flow and billing reminder. You could optimize your cancellation flow to an extreme level, and you might get that churn, that monthly churn rate down to single digits, or you might get that first month cohort down to single digits retention. Okay. But the work to do that is kind of immense, and you don't always know what's going to work, and it takes a lot of time. However, it's not that hard to go try to change that take rate from 35 to 40 or 45%. I can make some design updates. I can tweak my pricing. I can offer bulk subscriptions or test a gift with purchase type thing, right? I could test free shipping for subscribers versus not. There's so many levers on the acquisition side, and you already have an ad team, and you most likely already have a designer and or a dev person that's either contracted or working through your agency. So if I can get from 35 to 40, I'm now acquiring another, another 10 subscribers. Whereas on the other side, if I improve churn, if I go from 10% to 5%, I'm keeping like 2 or 3 more a month at this size. And so that's where I kind of say, from a math standpoint and from what you put in, what you get out standpoint, it is the offer that you should be putting your energy into. And then if you don't have time for anything else, just try to listen, survey, pay attention to just listen to your customers. Look at the cancellation data, look at tickets you're getting, complaints, reviews, all that stuff. And hopefully you're calling people periodically or actively surveying them, because that data, that quantitative or qualitative data is a gold mine for, I hate this, or I love this. Why do you do this to me? Why aren't you doing this to me? Kind of thing, right? So those are the two things I would say. If you're strapped, time and or impact, that's what you want to think about.
Amazing. Very helpful framework to think about.
Yeah.
Low lift, high impact, and higher confidence that they will actually make a change and make that difference. And then the pure numbers wise, very helpful.
Yeah. I'll say one last thing too, of was just, because again, most brands don't, a lot of the bigger brands that we work with are obsessed with their lifetime value. In fact, my recent newsletter post was talking about how brands, when they're scaling, they don't care about LTV because they're just trying to grow, but then they want to know what the LTV is so they know what to spend. You want to know how much a customer or subscriber is worth so that you can figure out how much you can afford to pay for them, right? And so that's the part of like, you want to try to get to some kind of position where you have an understanding of how much a subscriber is worth so that you can go back to the acquisition wheel and say, we can afford to spend more money. We can afford to spend more money because we know what the customers are worth after the fact. And so whether it's through Lifetimely, whether it's through like just Shopify, whether that's downloading a CSV and uploading it to ChatGPT, like trying to calculate that lifetime value is like the next step of like understanding the health of your business and how you can afford to keep growing.
Awesome. That is very, very good. I think that's a pretty decent primer, overview to leave things off. Anything else you want to mention or touch on before we keep moving into like the deep dive for each thing?
My only other thing is this is maybe more just a general pet peeve. I just like brands that have fun with their own brand. Like, we've worked with some pretty fun ones that are like Yo Pretty Boy Skincare, and they're really just funny how they talk to their customers. And so I just think like, don't overthink it, but also like, if you're a pup brand, like, talk to people, they're pet owners. They love their pets. So just things like that, where like I read messaging and transactional emails and other stuff. And I'm like, come on, like we're talking to human beings here. That's my only other thing.
No, I think that's amazing. I harp on this as even not a retention person, but just from like someone's shopping online for some reason. It's just translate the in-store experience to online.
Right.
Imagine someone walking into your store every month to pick up their order. Like, are you just, thanks for coming in. Okay, bye. Like, or is it, welcome back. Like, how's the pup? Like the personality,
exactly.
The experience, like that, you just touched on that. And so I just want to reiterate that is huge. So yeah, people are way more irrational than we want to believe. It's just how they feel. Yeah, it's how they feel when my subscription's coming up versus my subscription's coming up.
Right.
Big difference.
Yeah. You have the opportunity to get somebody excited about the fact that they're spending money with you, as opposed to making them question why they're spending money with you. Is ultimately, it's your choice. You can pick which one, but I know which one works better.
Awesome. Yeah. Sweet. Okay. Let's this is episode 1 of 4 of the mini series on subscriptions. Matt, I will catch you on the next episode. Thanks.
Sounds great.
There you have it. Subscriptions grow through better offers and acquisition, not just gray hat or hacky retention tactics. As a growing brand, you have to ruthlessly prioritize the offer for acquisition. It's the most important thing. It's the key lever early on. Thank you again to Matthew, who just gave you a starting framework. Focus on proving your take rate, understand your LTV, and listen to why your customers actually cancel. This is just episode 1 of our 4-part subscription mini-series. We're going deeper in the next episodes with Matthew. Feedback. I want it. I need it. Let me know what you want to see more of, what you want to see less of. If you know someone who'd be a great fit to help 7- and 8-figure brands on this show, I'd love to have them as a guest. Reply below, DM me on Twitter or LinkedIn. Would really appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Cartworthy. I'll catch you on the next one.